Have you ever heard of Black Wall Street? It's not a tale from a fantasy novel, but a real, thriving, and prosperous community that existed right here in America. Today we're going to uncover the story of Greenwood, Tulsa, a place of black excellence, and the horrific events that sought to erase it from our history books, the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. In the early 20th century, Greenwood, a district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, was one of the wealthiest black communities in the United States. It was a self-sufficient hub of black-owned businesses, a 35-square-block beacon of hope and prosperity in a deeply segregated America. We're talking about luxury hotels, movie theaters, grocery stores, law offices, doctors, practices, and beautiful homes. It was a place where black entrepreneurs and families flourished, building generational wealth against all odds. This wasn't just a neighborhood, it was a symbol of what black Americans could achieve when given the opportunity. The dollar circulated within the community dozens of times before it ever left, creating a powerful, self-sustaining economy. They called it Black Wall Street, and for a good reason. But this success story took a devastating turn. On May 30th, 1921, a young black man named Dick Rowland, a 19-year-old shoe shiner, entered an elevator in a downtown building. The operator was a 17-year-old white girl named Sarah Page. The exact details of what happened in that elevator are still debated, but the most common account is that Rowland tripped and, trying to steady himself, grabbed Page's arm. She screamed. The police were called, and although Page didn't press charges, the situation quickly spiraled out of control. The next day, a sensationalized and inflammatory article in the Tulsa Tribune newspaper alleged that Rowland had assaulted Page. This was the spark that lit the fuse of racial hatred that had been simmering for years. A white mob gathered at the courthouse where Rowland was being held, demanding he be handed over to them. To protect him from being lynched, a group of armed black men, many of them World War I veterans, also went to the courthouse to ensure his safety. A confrontation ensued. A shot was fired, and all hell broke loose. What followed was not a riot, it was a massacre. It was a coordinated, racially motivated attack by a deputized white mob against the black residents of Greenwood. Over the next 18 hours, from May 31st to June 1st, 1921, the mob, which grew into the thousands, descended upon Greenwood. They didn't just use guns, they used fire. Eyewitness accounts describe private planes owned by local white businessmen flying overhead, dropping turpentine balls and dynamite, firebombing the community from the air. This was one of the first, if not the first, aerial bombings of a U.S. city. The mob went from house to house, from business to business, looting, burning, and killing. They were given weapons by city officials. Members of the local police and National Guard either participated in the violence or stood by and did nothing to stop it. The Greenwood district, the symbol of black success, was systematically destroyed. 35 city blocks were turned to ash. Over 1,200 homes were burned to the ground. Hospitals, schools, churches, businesses all gone. The economic heart of the community was ripped out. The human cost was even more catastrophic. For decades, the official death toll was reported to be around 36, but we now know this was a deliberate and gross understatement. Historians and researchers today estimate that as many as 300 people, mostly black men, women, and children, were murdered. Thousands more were injured. Over 6,000 black residents were rounded up at gunpoint, forced into internment camps, and held for days. In the immediate aftermath, there was a deafening silence. The city and state officials covered it up. News reports disappeared. Insurance claims were denied on the grounds that the event was a riot. No one was ever held accountable for the destruction and loss of life. The story of Black Wall Street and its violent end was intentionally buried, erased from newspapers, textbooks, and public memory for nearly a century. Generations grew up in Oklahoma and across the country without ever learning that this happened. It became a dark secret, whispered about in families but never acknowledged publicly. It wasn't until the late 1990s, when a state commission was formed to investigate the event, that the truth began to resurface. Survivors then in their 80s and 90s came forward to share their harrowing testimonies, breaking decades of silence. Archaeologists began searching for mass graves, a grim task that continues to this day. The Commission's 2001 report officially recognized the event as a massacre and recommended reparations for the survivors and their descendants. To date, those reparations have not been paid. Why is it so important to tell this story now, over 100 years later? Because it's not just about the past. The Tulsa Race Massacre is a stark reminder of the brutal realities of racial violence in America and the deep-seated systems that allow it to happen and then cover it up. The destruction of Black Wall Street wasn't just about property. It was about destroying a symbol of Black economic power and independence. It was a violent reaction to Black progress. The massacre robbed a community of its accumulated wealth, a loss that has had devastating economic consequences for generations of Black families. It's a direct line to the racial wealth gap we still see today. Learning about the Tulsa Race Massacre forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about our history. It challenges the narrative that racial progress has been a steady upward climb. It shows us that history is not always written by the victors, but sometimes it's erased by them. But by unerasing it, by telling the stories of the entrepreneurs, the families, the veterans, and the victims of Greenwood, we honor their legacy, we acknowledge the injustice they suffered, and we commit to remembering. Because we can't build a better future without honestly understanding our past. The story of Greenwood is a story of incredible resilience and tragic loss. It's a chapter of American history that was deliberately hidden, but it can no longer be ignored. Let us make sure that the names of the victims and the vibrant spirit of Black Wall Street are never forgotten again. Thank you for watching and for taking the time to learn about this crucial part of our history. If this story moved you, please share this video to help ensure it's never buried again. Like and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. See you next time.